Vrindavan Dham. He gave a little chuckle as he cautioned us not to broadcast the fate of such a person, lest it got us into trouble. But he said that it was a fact that those who live in Vrindavan and behave like monkeys will take their next birth as monkeys. Then next life they will be liberated. In one life all their sinful activities will be punished. Because as soon as animal life is obtained, there is no more further record of sinful life. The animals cannot make sinful activities more than what is destined by them. But their sinful activity is not taken into account. For this man who is offered this monkey's body, he suffers the convenience of monkey life. So his sinful activities are counteracted. And because he came to Vrindavan and lived in Vrindavan by the mercy of Radharani, next life will be, that is the glory of Vrindavan Dham. Otherwise, what is the explanation of these dogs and hogs and monkeys in Vrindavan? It is Dham Aparadh, committing offense in Dham. As Dham Bhajan, if one undergoes devotional service out of Vrindavan and one executes devotional service in Vrindavan, that is 100 times better. Similarly, Dham Aparadh also. This aparadh, when offense is committed outside Vrindavan, that is not so grievous as committing offense in Vrindavan. Dham Aparadh. So the punishment is there, but the reward is also there. One life makes pardoned. Tatenu kampam susumikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Therefore, a devotee in a reverse condition of life, he understands that I am punished, little punished for my previous mischievous activities. So now I am becoming liberated. So he becomes more enthused to worship the Lord, that you are finishing my sinful reaction of life with slight punishment. Thank you very much. This is devotee. Tatenu kampam susumikshamana. Rishikesh, wanting to clarify at what point such fallen personalities recognize their position and turn to the Lord, asked, the dogs and monkeys, they feel grateful? Yes, Prabhupada said. When they come to sense, they feel grateful. As dogs, they cannot. As dog or monkey, they cannot enhance their sinful activities. It is stopped. And whatever they do, that is not taken into account. And to suffer as dog or monkey means counteracting all previous sins. One punishment, finished. Then he is fully liberated. When Haridas began to ask about desire, Srila Prabhupada interrupted to say that in Kali Yuga, simply desiring was not sinful. But Harikesh's question was about how the change in desire from sinful to spiritual comes about. Since a person takes a lower birth due to his material desires, and to be liberated he must have spiritual desires, he asked. So whilst they are monkeys, their desire must change. Or is it that change forced upon them by the mercy of Krishna? Prabhupada said that if one was repentant, then there was no punishment, but that the change in desire was indeed wrought by Krishna. This is forceful change. That is the advantage of Vrindavan Bhajan. But he had added, if one unconsciously, without any knowledge, does something wrong, that is excused. But they would do willfully. They know it is wrong, still they do it. That is punished. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally said, Asat ekastri sangi. Those who are habituated to illicit sex are punishable. Asat. It is very, very bad. And still if somebody does like that, he is punished. This is going on. Here illicit sex. The Babajis, I heard, they say, what is the wrong here? It is love. They say like that. They take it as love. Gopis love, they say. Gopis used to do that, used to have illicit mixing, intermingling with Krishna. What is wrong, they will say. They get support from Krishna Leela. Such rogues they are, sahajiyas. There are many so-called gentlemen, they write books on Krishna Leela, paint pictures. This is very nice. Krishna is advocating illicit intermingling. They take it as support of their sinful activities. I have seen personally anyone who is a woman hunter, he is being addressed by his friend. Oh, you are like Krishna. They take Krishna as a man. How they will take instruction of Krishna? Avajananti mam mudha ma param bhavam ajananta. We are teaching people to become Krishna conscious, to become servant of Krishna. And the so-called enlightened gentlemen take Krishna as a debog, black debog. They take Vaishnava religion is sex. Prabhupada digressed a little. This misconceived description of Krishna reminding him of the tribal people who live in the jungle. There are aborigines in India. They are called Santal. Black men live in the forest like the African aborigines. So I asked him that, you in the jungle, do you meet the tigers? Oh yes, why not? So how do you save yourself? So he had a small axe in the hand. So he showed me that, so long I have got this axe, even the tiger will not dare to attack me. After all, tiger is afraid of the axe. They are afraid of even stick. Immediately they understand he is superior. Actually, man is superior with some weapon. I've got personal experience. He said, he is a big tiger, but we treat him like dogs. One axe they keep always, just like we keep a stick, they keep one axe. Harikesh recalled that last year the monkeys in Seva Kunj had attacked Upendra, snatching his prasadam and biting him in the leg. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swami Namaste Saraswati Deva Pracharya Nirvishesha Shinamadi. So in this reading, Prabhupada is showing the importance of not taking things very cheaply. That is called sahajiya. Is you take things cheaply, and when you do that, especially in Vrindavan Dham, then you get the body of a dog or a monkey next life in Vrindavan Dham if you commit offense. So it is a great fortune to be able to get birth. He would say to be born in Vrindavan is nice, and to live in Vrindavan is better. The best is to die in Vrindavan. So there are so many devotees who get the chance to live in Vrindavan, but one has to be very careful, especially in Vrindavan, because the offenses, like Srila Prabhupada says here, are also anything you do good is also multiplied many times, but any bad thing you do is also multiplied. So that's why it's best to go to Vrindavan with someone who is senior to you, who can guide you. Otherwise we just go around and then like a tourist. Sometimes people go to Vrindavan like a tourist, they just go around. But Vrindavan is you need a guide to see. Otherwise, the holy dham, they say, is covered with some kind of illusion. And to see the real Vrindavan, you have to see it through the eyes of sadhus. Sometimes you go to some place and it's just one rock in the hill. You don't know what it is, but when you go with devotees and then you hear, oh, this is something special. For example, you go to a tree and you don't know what this tree is. It just looks like a normal tree. And then you go with the sadhus and they say that Krishna jumped from this tree to go into the Kaliya, to go to the Yamuna river and chastise Kaliya. And then you go and you offer obeisances to the tree, you hug the tree. So you are seeing through the eyes of scriptures. You are seeing the sadhus are revealing the Vrindavan Dham to you. So it's very safe to go to Vrindavan with devotees, and it's less risky. And yeah, any comments?
I want to ask the tiger and the X. I didn't catch this.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada is just saying, he's just commenting that if there is some animal and if you have something in your hand, it's superior. Yeah, the animal will not attack you. There is an instance where I think it was in Jaipur, no, it was in Los Angeles. I think Srila Prabhupada was walking on the beach and one big dog comes, very big, and then they are coming and barking. Just one dog, but it comes and it is about to, I don't know, do something, and beside Srila Prabhupada there are these big devotees like Brahmananda Prabhu and others, and even they hide behind Prabhupada. And Prabhupada just takes a stick and then goes like this and says, "Hut!" And then this big dog just takes a U-turn and then just tail behind the legs goes away, And then Prabhupada tells to the devotees, if there is some animal, you should just take a stick and take a stance and say, "Hut!" and the animal will go away. And so this is Nanda Kumar Prabhu, who is one of Srila Prabhupada's servant. He is also there. So then when they are in Jaipur has these big monkeys, big, like they are called langur monkeys, and they are very big, almost like our size. And then one day in Jaipur, Nanda Kumar Prabhu, he sees that there is a langur trying to get to the door, a monkey trying to get to the door. So he just remembers what Srila Prabhupada did. So he just takes a stick and then he does like this and then he says, "Hut!" And then this monkey just looks at him and just grows very big and starts coming to him, And then he runs away and he goes to Prabhupada and he tells Prabhupada, "I tried what you said. It didn't work." And Prabhupada just laughs at him and he says, "The langur was just testing you. You should have done it again," and then he would have run away. So, yeah, this is just him relating some general casual thing. It's just talking, just relating something casual. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Pangayate Girim Yad Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dematharinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-11. Shri Parvati Uvacha Ayam Kim Adhuna Loke Sastadandadhara Prabhu Asmad Vidhanam Dushtanam Nirlajjanam Cha Viprakrit. Sri Parvati Uvacha Ayam Kim Aduna Loke Shastadandadhara Prabhu Asmad Vidhanam Dustanam Nirlajjanam Cha Viprakrit. Sri Parvati Uvacha Ayam Kim Aduna Loke Sastadandadhara Prabhu Asmad Vidhanam Dustanam Nirlajjanam Cha Viprakrit.
Shri Parvati Vacha Ayam Kim Aduna Loke Shashta Danda Prabhu Asmad Vidaranam Dustanam Nilajanam Cha Viprakrit.
Shri Parvati Vacha Ayam Kim Aduna Loke Shasta Dana Prabhu Asmat Vedanam Dustanam Nirajanam Chaviprakrit.
Shri Parvati Vacha
Ayam Kim Aduna Loke Shastadandadara Prabhu
Shastadandadhara Prabhu
Asmat Vidana Dushtanam
Dustanam
Nirvajanam Chaviprakrit.
Cha Viprakrit. Word for word. Sri Parvati Uvacha. The goddess Parvati said, Ayam, this, Kim, whether, Adhuna, now, Loke, in the world, Sasta, the supreme controller, Dandadhara, the carrier of the rod of punishment, Prabhu, the master, Asmat Vidhanam, of persons like us, Dustanam, criminals, Nirlajjanam, who have no shame, Cha, and Viprakrit, the restrainer. Translation. The goddess Parvati said, Alas, has this upstart now received a post from which to punish shameless persons like us? Has he been appointed ruler, carrier of the rod of punishment? Is he now the only master of everything? There's no purport, so I will read on. Text 12. Na veda dharmam kila padma yonir na brahma putra bhrigunaradadyu na vaikuru kumara kapilo manuscha enoni sedyanti ativartinam haram. Alas, Lord Brahma, who has taken his birth from the lotus flower, does not know the principles of religion. Nor do the great saints like Bhrigu and Narada, nor the four Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumar. Manu and Kapil have also forgotten the religious principles. I suppose it to be because of this that they have not tried to stop Lord Shiva from behaving properly. Text 13. Esam anu dheyeya padabcha yugmam jagat gurum mangala mangalam swayam yashatra bandhu paribhuya shurin prashasti dristas tadayam hidadyaha. Translation. This Chitraketu is the lowest of Kshatriyas, for he has impudently overridden Brahma and the other demigods by insulting Lord Shiva, upon whose lotus feet they always meditate. Lord Shiva is personified religion and the spiritual master of the entire world, and therefore Chitraketu must be punished. Purport. All the members of the assembly were exalted Brahmanas and self-realized souls, but they did not say anything about the conduct of Lord Shiva, who is embracing the goddess Parvati on his lap. Chitraketu nonetheless criticized Lord Shiva, and therefore the opinion of Parvati was that he should be punished. I'll read one more. Text 14. Nayam arhati vaikunta pada mulopa sarpanam sambhavita matis stabda sadhu viparyupashitam. Translation. This person is puffed up because of his achievements, thinking, I am the best. He does not deserve to approach the shelter of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, which are worshipped by all saintly persons, for he is impudent, thinking himself greatly important. Purport. If a devotee thinks that he is very much advanced in devotional service, he is considered puffed up and unfit to sit beneath the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Again, this instruction by Lord Chaitanya is applicable. Trinadapi sunichena taror api shahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Unless one is humble and meek, one cannot qualify to sit at the lotus feet of the Lord. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamaham Dadate Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadbhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutirevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuva Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we see that in these verses, Chitraketu, he is not able to recognize the position of Lord Shiva in a sense. That is what Parvati is saying. She is a little sarcastic in few of these verses, saying that so who are like saying something like, there are already people who are greater than you who know the religious principles, but they have not corrected Lord Shiva. But then you come and you try to correct him. So, although Chitraketu, he is in a very good consciousness, he makes this little mistake. And in the previous purpose, Srila Prabhupada says here that he was somewhat a little proud. So it's interesting that even devotees like Chitraketu, if they are not careful, the pride can enter the heart. Srila Prabhupada would say that my disciples, they do not take Maya very seriously. So that is interesting in this connection also, that even though someone may be very advanced, if they are not careful, then there is always risk of falling down. It may not be a big fall down, but a subtle fall down is also that pride enters your heart. And so spiritual life, it is said, it's like walking on a razor's edge. Walking on a razor's edge. You have to be very careful, otherwise you get cut. And in the bhajan, Bhaja Hure Mana Govinda Das, he sings, Kamala Tala Jala Jivana Tala Mala. So this life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal. So if you a lotus petal, it does not get wet. And if you put a drop of water on the lotus petal, it goes up and down. And at any moment, the drop of water can fall. So this life is like that, and even so the spiritual life, spiritual chance we got is also very, like razor's edge, and we have to be careful to make sure that pride does not enter into our heart. I think there was one instance where Srila Prabhupada was praying and some devotees were asking, what are you praying for? And Srila Prabhupada said, I pray that I do not fall down. And I think somebody said, because he was praying like that, he wouldn't fall down. So Srimad Bhagavatam reminds us with so many stories of devotees like Chitraketu and devotees like Bharat Maharaj. So all pure devotees, but still, because they were not careful, there was sometimes a big fall down, sometimes a small fall down. So Srimad Bhagavatam is full of these stories of reminder stories, so to say, that can be applied in our life on these principles of that we can learn from. So in this sloka, so Mother Parvati, she is saying, this person is puffed up because of his achievements. thinking I am the best. So most of the time when we achieve something, we start thinking, I have something. We start becoming proud. And Queen Kunti, she prays, she gives her prayer, she prays to Krishna, and then she says, those who have Janma, Aishwarya and Suta Sri, they have good birth, they have a lot of opulence, they are in a very good family, and they Janma, Aishwarya, and they have a nice education. When you have these four things, then it's very difficult to approach the Lord with all your heart. You know, we can examine how much education do we have, how much of opulence do we have. You know, are we born in a very good family? And then we can examine how much are we surrendered. So, I mean, it's not that these, and I think Prabhupada writes there in the purport, these can be utilized, but again, one has to be careful. Because achievements, when you achieve something, you start thinking, I am the doer of these things. I'm the cause of these things. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that a person bewildered by the three modes of material nature thinks himself the doer, but that is actually being done by the three modes of material nature. So Parvati, she says here, he does not deserve to approach the shelter of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, which are worshipped by all saintly persons, for he is impudent, thinking himself greatly important. So one who is puffed up, Prabhupada writes also that you cannot be qualified to sit at the lotus feet of the Lord if you are not humble and meek. Jesus Christ, he says, the meek shall inherit the earth. You know, so the quality of being humble, and this verse, Prabhupada, even in the 10th sloka, to the purport in the 10th sloka, he put this verse, and then again in the 14th sloka there is this verse again, Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So this verse is like I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, our devotees should always wear this verse in the neck. This is this is the verse that you should always carry around with you, and then wear it like it's your neck beads. So one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So we can see from Chaitanya Charitamrita so many examples of devotees. Can you give one example of devotee who was always chanting? Rule Prabhu? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always chanting, okay. And he was humble. He was showed by his example. When someone would glorify him, what would he do? Someone who would glorify him, he would just close his ears and say, no. I think Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he wrote something glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he wrote some nice poetry, and I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu threw it away or something. So he would always close his ears, although he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was showing by example. Any other devotee from Chaitanya Charitamrita that you know, Prabhu? Haridas Thakur, yes. He was also very humble. He was so humble that he would not go to the Jagannath Puri temple. He would say, I'm not fit. I'm not fit to go in. He would just observe the chakra and take darshan from there. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was so loving, so captivated by the humility of Haridas Thakur that he would personally come to meet him. And then when Haridas Thakur left his body, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally carried his body and then put him for cremation. Any other devotees that reminds you of humility, Mataji's or Prabhu's? Any devotee around you? Srila Prabhupada. Can you share what he did and what can you learn from him? Just something. What can you learn from how was he humble? What comes to my mind is, you have this prayer up there in our room. Please make my, something like, I forgot the exact thing, but please make my speech appropriate so that they can understand my message. He wrote in his poem. And if we read that poem, it is such a touching and such a humble offering that he wrote. And he signs at the end, he says, an insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So one should be a beggar if you want to get the mercy of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada was also so humble in his spreading of Krishna consciousness. I think Yadubar Prabhu, he wanted to, Prabhupada instructed him to make movies. So he was actually a photographer and he was doing his masters, and one of his so he was studying the Hare Krishna movement, and so he went to India with his wife, and then he went to Prabhupada, and then he asked Prabhupada, I want to travel with you because I want to photograph the Hare Krishna movement and all their things, and but he was very inclined to the philosophy, but he didn't want to become a devotee immediately. But Prabhupada understood this, and Yadubar Prabhu, he asked him, can I travel with you? And Srila Prabhupada, he asked him, are you willing to wear dhoti? And Yadubar Prabhu said, no. And Prabhupada said, then you cannot travel. Because Prabhupada knew the heart, he just, he knew that he was already inclined. And at one point, Yadubar Prabhu, he just puts his camera down in a very big crowd of devotees, because I think he wants to go help someone, play kartal or something. And when he put the camera down, Prabhupada calls him, and then he tells him, never put your camera down. So he takes this as a literal instruction not to put your camera down, but also as an instruction that never stop making videos. So then he starts making so many videos on, documentaries on the Hare Krishna movement. And he goes to Prabhupada and he says, we want to make a documentary on you. And Prabhupada says, what is the need? Oh, because Prabhupada was always glorifying Krishna. He didn't want to glorify himself. And Yadupal Prabhu, he says, because people want to know the person behind the Hare Krishna movement. People want to know. And it will glorify Krishna ultimately. So then he said, okay. So that was Srila Prabhupada. He never put his name in front. People know the Hare Krishna movement, but not many people know Prabhupada, if you ask around. But if you see most of the societies, especially coming from the East, most of them are, people know the person who started the movement. It's mostly, the whole movement is, for example, their name. The whole movement the whole spiritual movement someone started is their name. And if we just look at all these different institutions, it's either the whole movement is their name, or they worship the Guru as God. They are Mayavadis. So, but Srila Prabhupada, he was always putting Krishna at the front. And he was always serving. He was serving the holy name, and he was serving his spiritual master. So that was his humility. That was his success. And anyone else? Any other devotees?
Yeah, many.
Many.
But I want to say something to humility, if it's okay.
Please.
Because first of all, the first person that comes to my mind is Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami.
Mm-hmm.
He's very humble. And also considering himself lower than the, warm and is to first asking the permission of everyone before he starts, really doing the most important work. But one can have the misconception that humility means, just staying in the background, not doing like big things. Humility is not the same like a low self-esteem. Humility also means to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. And for example, doing this, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when his Guru Maharaj passed away, so many of his other contemporary people who associated with Maharaj wanted to put him to Samadhi, with the caste Goswamis or something, in order to have something common, or people would come and there and things like that. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj, he said, but who is actually a real disciple of him? And he said, who has not had illicit sex for, I don't know, a month or something, and nobody could speak up, and even he went down until one day, So then he said, okay, I'm going to take care, because they wanted to, because Maharaj said, I want to be, my dead corpse, it should be
Dragged.
pulled through the dust, of Vrindavan. And they really wanted to do that. Maharaj stopped and he put him properly in Samadhi, because he could understand really his mindset, his mood. So humility can also mean that, it can also look very strong, like, making an innovative move, to have a movement, not being a Babaji, even initiating oneself into sannyas order. Was such an amazing person, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But also humble, like anything, In order to be empowered by Krishna, you have to have the qualities. Otherwise, one cannot be empowered.
Yeah, such important point. Thank you. Such an important point, that humility is not someone said humility is honesty. That is also something I really because it's not low self-esteem, definitely. So when you are honest, I think this is Kadamba Kanan Maharaj, he said this. When you are honest, you see that you have so many faults. You have so many faults. And then when you see you have so many faults, you understand you have to go higher, you have to progress, then you are naturally humble. And also what Mataji was sharing, humility is also, you follow the instructions of your predecessors, of your guru, and take the bold stance when necessary. One personality I can think of is Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He was such a perfect example of how to be bold for Srila Prabhupada. He was a very expert manager, he was an expert at almost some, I think Jayadvaita Maharaj, he says, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was expert at everything. He had so many qualities, but he was always following Prabhupada's instruction. So, yeah, another devotee I remember is Jayananda Prabhu. You know Jayananda Prabhu? Rule? So Jayananda Prabhu is, he was there when Prabhupada was here, but he left before Srila Prabhupada actually left, and he had a PhD from one university, and he was a little older than the rest of the devotees. Most of the devotees were like in their early 20s. He was around 27 or something. But he had his PhD, he was so frustrated that he was driving a taxi. And I think then he joined, and he was so humble. He was the temple president also, and but he would support the temple by driving taxi. And Srila Prabhupada would say, it's not fair that only Jayananda is doing it, all of you go and get jobs. So he asked everyone to go and get jobs, and I remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he got a job in Kodak. He was just taking the film canister, breaking into half and putting it. Taking film canister, breaking into half and putting it. And Vishnujan Swami, he knew how to make flutes. So he made flutes and started just sitting on the street and just playing Hare Krishna all day. And he was selling flutes. And Jayapataga Maharaj, he went to a restaurant to clean after they were finished. So, and Jayananda Prabhu, he was driving the taxi, and someone said his whole Bhagavatam class would be how he met this person in the taxi and how he was talking to this person and what he was saying. And he was the devotee who would do all the work in the temple, all the things that others didn't want to do. And there was one guest who was coming, and Jayananda Prabhu was just taking the waste the plastic, and he was just outside the temple and he was just cleaning. And this guest was thinking, if the person who is cleaning the basket and everything is so happy, how happy must the person inside there be? So he was so inspired by seeing Jayananda. And there is a book, The Life of Jayananda Thakur. It's I read it a long time ago, so I don't remember much, but his example is so nice. And Prabhupada really loved him. Prabhupada loved him so much because he also gave his first, I think he gave all his savings to print teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada even writes that somewhere, that I want to thank Jayananda Thakur for giving his life savings to print teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And he was the one who built the Ratha. He would always, every year, build the Rath Yatra cart, because in those days there was no place to keep the big cart, so they would dismantle it after every Rath Yatra, and they would again rebuild it the next year. So he was the one doing all the carpentry work, So and he was the one going to the bed the most late and the one waking up the most early, So and he was doing all the carpentry work, and he would invite people from the street to help him. He was sometimes he would sleep, and then he would be just hammering nails, and then if someone would walk by, he would just call them without even looking at them, and they would have nice conversations with the whole day, but Jayananda was just working and just preaching to them, just talking to them like a friend. And I think there was once after he left, and he was known in the neighborhood as Johnny Ananda. His name was Johnny, and some people would call him even the beggars knew him, even the people in the market, in a supermarket, everyone knew him as such a nice person. And there was once a beggar, and he hadn't seen Jayananda Prabhu for some time, so he asked the devotee, "Where is my friend Johnny Ananda?" And he said, "He's no more." And the beggar started crying like anything. "Oh, my friend Johnny Ananda has left." So he touched people's heart like so much, and which reminds us of the prayer that the Goswamis, they were I forgot the Sanskrit, but they were appreciated by both the devotees and the ruffians. All the people who were not interested also really appreciated the Goswamis because they were so friendly with everyone. So Jayananda Prabhu was also very humble, very friendly, and Jayapataka Maharaj first met Jayananda Prabhu, and then he was hammering a nail, and then he asked Jayapataka Maharaj to catch the nail. Can you hold the nail? And then Jayananda Prabhu, he was just hammering, and Maharaj shares later that was the perfect hammering I had seen in my life. So, and when Jayananda Prabhu left, Prabhupada instructed that his photos should be in the Ratha cart of all the Ratha Yatras throughout, forever. And his name is there in the calendar of the Vaishnava saint, So if you look at the Vaishnava calendar, there is appearance of Jayananda Thakur, appearance and disappearance. Only his name is there. I think that's what Prabhupada wanted. So they call him the ISKCON saint. So he was a saint in that regard. So whenever I read anything about humility, I just remember him and his glorious life. He had a cancer, so he passed away. And he was not, you wouldn't know that he was such a exalted devotee by looking at him. You just wouldn't know because he was so humble. He was normally dressed in normal clothes, because mostly he was just cleaning and working, but he was such exalted and so powerful. He had so much impact on so many devotees' lives. Yeah, Jananda Prabhu ki jai. Anyone would like to add anything?
Jananda Prabhu passed away his body.
Sorry?
Jananda Prabhu passed away his body.
Yeah, even before Srila Prabhupada, I think it was 1976 or something like that. Yes, Prabhu.
Another question.
Yeah, please.
I don't know how exactly to ask, but once I talked with Ram Gopal Prabhu about the topic of self-confidence, and he, for example, he was saying something that usually is not said so often, but like that, for example, like you can work on yourself spiritually, and that might help change something materially to the better, but that might not necessarily always be the case, that automatically something spiritual changes something material in you. So sometimes you might have to work on the material side as well. So I was just wondering if that maybe you can explain more about the dynamics of humility, self-confidence, and like that maybe not always chanting and reading is the only thing that makes everything perfect, but there are more things to be made.
Yeah, Mahatma Prabhu talks about this a lot. He even has so many seminars on self-esteem and self-care and self-love and many of those topics. Yeah, he does also say that perhaps if you're chanting purely, then because we have sometimes these deep samskaras that we bring into when we start chanting also, and some mentalities that may even affect our chanting. Some mentalities like maybe we are not good enough, some kind of low self-esteem, and they don't necessarily mean, they come from our previous samskaras, and we may have to work on them to be able to chant purely also, because they are like hindering our understanding of who we are. Because if we look at our philosophy, we are not, it's not that we are actually special, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So and all of us, we have this conditioning that when we come into spiritual life, we have a baggage of our previous samskaras that we may need to deal with, and that dealing is not necessarily separate also, but in a way I think it's part of the whole thing, part of understanding that we are all special and Krishna loves us, and then devotees are helping us, so it's part of the understanding, but then it may have to be done in a slightly rigorous way, because our conditioning is so big in that small area. So maybe we'll have to work on that to start even understanding that we are special, and that will help us to also chant properly when we understand that we are part of Krishna and we are not the body. We have certain karma, we have certain negative patterns in our mind, But when we understand, okay, these are my patterns, and then we know how to deal with them, then it really helps. At least for me, listening and working with these things has helped me. The seminars by Mahatma Prabhu has really helped also on working on myself, on these things that may hinder you from completely taking shelter of the holy names. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I think sometimes humility might be easily confused with like talking yourself down. That's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So someone said humility is not thinking of yourself less, but thinking less of yourself. Sorry. Sorry. It's right? Okay. Not thinking of less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. You are not putting always yourself in the center. You're trying to serve. It's not thinking that, oh, I'm so low, I'm so wretched. In a way, we are all wretched in this world. We are all, Raghunath, he would say, we are all dented cans. Cans? Cans are very nice and smooth, but we are all dented, like there is always some kind of break, some holes. So we are in a material world, and every one of us is, it's a hospital, so every one of us is diseased in some way. So we don't focus so much on our limitations, so much on our contamination. We just try to serve and not put ourselves in the center, try to serve, and then slowly maybe we see something change in our consciousness. Listening to Bhagavatam every day, I've understood, I've seen that it really changes you. When you Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Even Bhagavatam itself says that you should listen to Bhagavatam every day. So, and by listening to Bhagavatam every day, all the contaminations in the heart is completely eradicated. That is the translation. And loving service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised, loving service unto the Supreme Lord is established as an irrevocable fact. Right? So just by hearing Bhagavatam every day, all the contaminations in the heart is slowly goes away. But and Bhagavatam says very clearly that humility is, you are serving. You are always in this intention of serving. It's not, I think it's not separate. It's not like, okay, this is material or this is spiritual. But it may look a little material because sometimes we may need to just get help. If that's too chronic, we may need to just work on that particular thing and get help in that, some conditioning that we may have. So it can help us advance. Because sometimes things can be a little chronic and we may need an expert doctor, so to say, to just work on that, to help us work on that. And when we just go through Bhagavatam, maybe the focus on that particular conditioning may just goes through easily. We may not reflect so much. But if we have this, sometimes some of us may have this, but we can get help. You can try listening to Mahatma Prabhu once. he would help. Have you done this, Prabhu? Keshanishuddhan?
I would listen to him face to face. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, he has very nice seminars on this. I would recommend that.
My experience is also, and I also heard like that, and first what I heard, that when we start cleaning, let's say there's a bucket that has water in it, normally if there's already some dirt in the water, it's on the floor, and you don't see it unless you stir. So when we start cleaning, like a Maha cleaning in a temple or something, when you start to realize how much dirt is there. Previously, we don't have the eyes to see it. We just think, why clean? It's good, there's no spider webs and everything. But actually, there's so much dirt, once we go through the process, and then we can realize how much dirt is there. And also, this verse that you mentioned, if you allow me, it says it's almost completely like Krishna. A little bit of karma is still there, otherwise we do not have the body. Something is there. But I heard that this is Krishna karma also, because when we become, or we try to be like devotees, we aspire to be devotees and we train like that, then we are no longer under the laws of karma, but Krishna, he can use our so-called karma to, give us certain lessons. He can take away some karma. But I heard from Kanamakanana Swami that Krishna can also additionally give some lessons. So that is the mercy of Krishna, because he is so enthusiastic to get us back to him much more than we actually are to go to him. He said Krishna is 100 times more eager, to have us back. He loves us so much. And then regarding the cleansing, my experience is that we need to know why, what needs to be cleansed. Some things they don't need this, like when we really focus on chanting purely, or we really absorb ourselves and listen attentively. But then the quality of this attentiveness, that is that makes the difference. Like with this story from Srimad Bhagavata Satara, with Gokana, he really had the need to hear everything, and finally he got to liberation. And others who were present who were also listening, like paying oral reception, but maybe not processing the things, not really having the vested interest, I must understand it now, that makes a huge difference in the whole process of devotion and service. And it's not that when we are diseased, that we don't need to pay attention to that, because it's just the body. No. Actually, the whole process of healing, even having this disease show up somewhere in the body or in the social body, when we have disturbed relationship with others, is part of the healing. It is made so that we can become attentive to what is actually going on inside, the social mirror, the mirror of the body, And then, when we learn that, we can process that, not just pushing away things which we don't like anger or lust or whatever, envy, We say, no, this is bad, I don't want it, I'm not like that. Just like trying to push it under the carpet or put a blanket over it or something. It's not going away from this. Sometimes, even as so-called devotees or aspiring devotees, we may have the tendency we don't want to look at these things. But then it keeps coming up into one's face. And sometimes this is also, I heard Prabhupada Mataji in Gauradesh, she said that this is Krishna's thunderbolt mercy. Sometimes Krishna, when we don't learn a lesson, he can take out the club, and also give us his mercy in the form of the club, until we finally learn the lesson. So it's actually important first to also be conscious more and more, to come to self-promotion and to know what is happening and to really introspect and other things. It's not automatically just click. It really depends on the quality of our healing, chanting and everything. And then we practice the sadhana, and then we become Krishna conscious. First conscious and Krishna conscious.
Yeah. Thank you. Prabhu, anything else? I hope that's clear, or helps. That helps. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.